Now let's look at the effect of crime and nutrition. This was done by Dr. Stitt, who was a probation officer in Ohio, who did some research on the effect of diet and probation violators. And what she found is that those who remained on a bad diet, a lot of sugar, a lot of junk food, a lot of food additives like MSG, NutraSweet, these things, when they stayed on that, 56% of them ended up violating their probation by committing some antisocial act, robbery, violence, etc. But if they were switched to a healthy diet, only 8% ever broke their probation. So there was a tremendous change in their behavior just by changing their diet. And these are felons. When they looked at narcotic abuse, they found the same thing, is that those who maintained the bad diet, the high sugar diet, junk food diet, 47% of them continued to use narcotics while they were on probation. Whereas those who were switched to the better diet, only 13% of them violated their probation by using narcotics. So it's a rather profound effect. It's not a minor effect. Now, the Alabama prison system also did the similar study. They changed the diet of some of the prisoners and used the others as control. They found that there was a 42% reduction in criminal events when they changed these criminals' diet, and that there was a 61% reduction in antisocial behavior at 1 year. Another example of the profound effect of diet. Now, just to give you a personal case, this is Raymond. Raymond was arrested for assaulting his girlfriend. He actually tried to kill her. They were just arguing over something that was non-consequential, just silly. But he flew into a rage, pulled his .357 Magnum, grabbed her, put it up to her head to shoot her, and she knocked it out of the way with her hand, and he shot through her hand. She wouldn't file charges against him, but the state charged him with firing a weapon inside the city limits, so they arrested him. Well, Dr. Stitt went back and looked at his history, and what she found out is that age 4, his mother said he had these weak spells when he was playing, and he'd get so weak he couldn't hardly play any longer. She'd give him a little sugar, and then he would get back into his full activity and be fine until his blood sugar fell again, and it kept repeating. At age 13, she noticed there was radical mood swings and that his grades were beginning to fail. And he would have violent outbursts. This was coincident with his falling blood sugar. And at age 23, he attempts murder on his girlfriend. So she took him while he was on parole and put him on a special diet. His diet before consisted of junk foods, donuts, pastry, candy, and coffee, which is a lot of people's diet, particularly young people. And what they found is when they took him off all of this and put him on healthy food, he never broke his parole again, and he didn't commit any more violent acts. He was a changed person. And everybody remarked how they just couldn't believe it was the same person. Study a prison system in 5 different states, and they looked at adult felons, and they looked for deficiencies in a lot of different nutrients, but mainly magnesium, zinc, folate, and vitamin B6. What they found in all 5 states was that violent offenders had the most deficiencies of all the prisoners. The more violent, the more deficiencies. So it's not just hypoglycemia. When they wanted to objectify it and say, well, is there any objective evidence of change in brain function, they look at EEG function in felons. These are serious criminals. And what they found is that there were about 14 different abnormalities in their EEG. When they switched their diet, it went from 14 to 2 abnormalities. So the EEG improved considerably. Now, in a Finnish study, Verkuken in 1983 studied violent offenders in prison. And what he found is that the impulsively violent offender, that is the one who just would attack you out of the blue and beat you senseless or stomp you to death, their blood sugar fell suddenly and it rose very quickly. So in other words, the blood sugar would fall and it would come back up quickly. And those were the ones with the most violence. And the antisocial offender, that is the guy who's going to steal and shoplift, but not necessarily violent, his blood sugar would fall, but then there was a slow rise coming back up. And we know that it's changes in blood sugar that can produce dramatic alterations in brain function and cause these antisocial behaviors. In fact, there were even cases in which we found people would become kleptomaniacs because of high sugar intake. There was an interesting case of a woman who was going to stores stealing like crazy. She got arrested. They found out she was a reactive hypoglycemic. They corrected it, and she never had any more problem with that again. So you can get some rather bizarre behaviors from this.